They called it Unit Gray Lantern, and that wasn't its real name. Just the one people used when they wanted to pretend the unit didn't exist. Gray Lantern wasn't a team you could find on a budget sheet or a recruiting poster. It didn't have a logo, a motto, or a public ceremony. The only proof it existed was the way certain disasters never made the news. I was Evan Crow, field analyst and incident lead for Gray Lantern's Night Cell, one of 7 teams that rotated through a facility hidden beneath a federal archive in Marrowgate, Virginia. The building above us looked like a dead-end government warehouse, the kind of place you drive past without remembering you saw it. That night, at 2:11 a.m., the warehouse remembered us. The first alert came as a single red line on a dull monitor. Sable/7, unauthorized signal mirror. No sirens. No screaming lights. Just a line of text so small it would have been easy to miss, unless your job was to assume that the world ended quietly. "Mirror?" asked Lena Park, our systems operator, sliding into her chair with a cup of coffee that suddenly looked like the world's worst decision. "A duplication event," I said. "Someone's repeating our own encrypted handshake back at us." Lena's expression sharpened. "That can't happen." "It's happening." On the wall screen, our regional map flickered. A cluster of points lit up along the eastern corridor, small, precise, like pinholes in a photograph. Then the second alert arrived. Dock/12, autonomous freight override. Then a third. Grid/3, phantom demand spike. The air in the room changed. Not with panic, with recognition. Because those 3 alerts together didn't mean a glitch. They meant choreography. Someone had learned how to move our systems like a puppet's limbs, without tripping the usual alarms. Someone patient. Someone who'd practiced. Lena typed fast, her fingers almost silent. "I'm tracing the signal mirror. It's not external." I stared at her. "Say it again." She swallowed. "It's inside. The handshake is coming from within U.S. routing." Across the room, Miles Rourke, our field operator, former recon, the kind of man who could stand still and make you feel like you were the one moving, lifted his head. "Inside," he repeated, as if tasting the word. In Gray Lantern, inside was never a comforting direction. "Who else is on duty?" I asked. Lena pulled up the roster. "Night staff only. Gray Lantern cell. Building security. 2 maintenance contractors signed in at 2100 hours. Pull their badges." "Now." Lena complied. 2 names appeared. One was real. One wasn't. The fake one wasn't even clever. The ID number belonged to a retired postal worker. The photo was a blurred face that the system should have rejected. But it hadn't, because the system had been told not to. I felt the first cold edge of it. A breach didn't start with gunfire. It started with permission. Miles was already standing. "Where is the contractor now?" Lena tracked the badge pings across the facility map. I'd moved through corridors that only a handful of people even knew existed. Then it stopped, right outside Vault C, where Gray Lantern stored the one thing we never discussed above a whisper. The Gray Lantern protocol key. A physical device the size of a paperback, sealed in a Faraday case, used only if the country was about to be blinded. If that key was taken, someone could make our own defenses go deaf on command. "Lock Vault C," I ordered. Lena's hands flew. The system responded, then froze. A message appeared on her screen in plain text, like someone typing on the inside of our walls. Too late. The badge vanished. Not moved. Vanished. My heart didn't race. It sank. Miles looked at me. "That wasn't a contractor." "No," I said. "That was a courier." Lena's voice went thin. "Evan, the autonomous freight override is targeting Port Halden." Port Halden wasn't a famous port. It was a workhorse. The kind of place where containers arrived and left without anyone caring what was inside, as long as it was stamped and paid for. And that's why it mattered. I leaned over her screen. "What freight?" Lena's answer took a full second, like her brain refused to say it. "Grid stabilizer coils," she said. "High capacity. Dual use." Dual-use meant civilian equipment that could be repurposed for war. What happens if you put those coils in the wrong hands? Miles asked. I didn't like how calm he sounded. You don't have to put them in anyone's hands, I said. You just have to place them in the right spots. Lena's eyes widened. Oh my God, they're not stealing equipment. They're positioning it. For what? Miles asked. I stared at the map, at the pinholes along the corridor. A blackout, I said. Not random. Directed. A blindfold. Lena opened another feed, critical infrastructure telemetry. The phantom demand spikes weren't in neighborhoods. They were in nodes. The skeleton points that held the grid together. Someone was testing load response patterns, learning how to snap the spine without making it look like a knife. Then a new alert arrived, and the room went quieter than silence. Aurora class, national response threshold. That label didn't appear unless an automated model believed the next hours could trigger a cascade event. Airports down, hospitals on generators, communications fragmented into islands. A country divided by darkness. And darkness was the oldest cover for invasion. Miles stepped closer to the wall display, scanning routes, timing, choke points. Who's behind it? Lena shook her head. The signal signature doesn't match any known group. It's clean. Clean meant professional. Clean meant state level. Clean meant no fingerprints, which meant the fingerprints were somewhere else. I forced my voice steady. We're dealing with a ghost operation. Whoever took the key wants the grid blind for a window. During that window, they'll move something. Miles's jaw clenched. Or someone. Lena said, Evan, there's a secure channel request, priority. It's from the executive switchboard. That phrase rarely touched our room. Not because we were unimportant, because we were inconvenient. Put it through, I said. The audio came alive. An older voice, controlled, clipped. Director Halvorsen, one of the few people who could speak Grey Lantern's name without turning his head. Crow, he said. You have minutes, not hours. We've confirmed. The protocol key was removed. That activates contingency unknown. Understood, I said. We're tracking a freight reposition at Port Halden and grid node load tests along the corridor. Likely a directed blackout. Halvorsen exhaled once. We intercepted chatter. Not in English. Not in any language you can translate directly. But we recognize the pattern, pre-infiltration comms. Something is already inside. Miles leaned closer. Where? Halvorsen's reply felt like a door closing. The capital. Lena's hands froze above the keyboard. I didn't speak for a moment. Not because I was shocked. Because it clicked into place. The directed blackout wasn't just to hide movement. It was to hide a moment. A moment when surveillance went dark, when cameras died, when traffic lights failed, when digital IDs couldn't be verified. A moment when someone could walk into the heart of the country like a shadow wearing a name. What's the target? I asked. Halvorsen paused. We don't know. The honesty in that sentence was worse than any lie. Miles turned to me. We need to go. Go where? Lena asked, voice tense. Miles's answer was simple. To the place they don't want us looking. I knew what he meant. We weren't chasing a container. We were chasing the consequence. I looked at Lena. Can you keep eyes on Port Halden and the corridor tests? She nodded, already moving. I can try. Don't try, I said. Do. Miles grabbed his kit. No heavy armor, no loud gear. Grey Lantern didn't move like an army. It moved like a rumor becoming real. We took the service elevator up through the warehouse, past silent shelves, past a security guard who didn't meet our eyes. When we stepped outside, the night air smelled normal, cold, faintly damp, utterly unaware. That was the most frightening part. Because the world never looked like it was about to change. It just did. On the drive toward Washington, Lena fed updates into our earpieces. Port Halden's freight is moving, she said. But it's not leaving the port. It's being redistributed, loaded onto small trucks. No manifests. Local routes. I asked. Too many. But the trucks are heading inland along secondary roads. like they're avoiding checkpoints. Miles drove without looking like he was in a hurry, which was his version of a sprint. Grid spikes? I asked. Still probing, Lena replied. They're mapping fail points. Evan, they're good. Are they triggering any official alerts? Not yet. They're staying under thresholds. Under thresholds meant the country wouldn't react until it was too late. We crossed into the city just as an unmarked message flashed on my secure phone. One line, no sender. You can't stop a dark sun. Miles glanced at it. That's not a hack. That's a taunt. Or an instruction, I said. We reached a discreet building near the river, one of Gray Lantern's emergency observation points. Inside, a single analyst team sat with headphones on, faces pale. Their lead, Ari Vance, looked up as we entered. We're seeing an anomaly, Ari said. It's not on public feeds. Show me. Ari pulled up a live camera from a utility tunnel beneath the city, an old maintenance artery under a transit hub. The camera angle was low, grainy, but clear enough. 3 figures moved through the tunnel. Not workers, not commuters. They wore neutral clothing, but they moved wrong. Too deliberate, too synchronized. Each carried a small case. One had a calm, expressionless face that made my skin tighten. They've got the key? I asked. Ari nodded. Possibly. They entered through a storm access. No alarms. Miles leaned in. Where does that tunnel lead? Ari pointed. 2 routes. One dead ends into a substation. The other runs beneath the Capitol Communications relay. My breath caught. They're going to blind the city from underneath. Lena's voice came through my earpiece, urgent. Evan, grid demand just surged. It's happening. They're starting the blackout sequence. Outside, the city still glowed. Streetlights. Windows. The illusion of safety. But in our room, a graph climbed like a heartbeat becoming a scream. Time, Miles asked. Less than 10 minutes, Ari said. Miles looked at me. We go in. Now. Us. I asked. He gave a thin smile. You wanted extraordinary. We moved fast, not running, because running draws eyes. We slipped into the service access, down iron stairs, into the tunnel's stale breath. The air smelled like wet concrete and old electricity. Far ahead, dim headlamps bobbed. The 3 figures. Miles raised his hand, signaling stillness. We listened. A faint clicking sound, like a device being connected. A soft, deliberate hum rising in pitch. They're activating the key, I whispered. Miles nodded once, then moved like a knife sliding out of a sheath. The first figure turned too late. Miles was on him, silent, controlled. An elbow, a twist, a body lowered rather than dropped. No drama, no noise. The second figure reached for a weapon. I did what I was trained to do, not to fight, but to prevent systems from failing. I slammed into him, driving him into the wall with my shoulder, pinning his arm so he couldn't draw. His eyes met mine. Calm, almost curious. He wasn't afraid. That terrified me. The third figure, closest to the device case, stepped back and pressed something on a handheld unit. Above us, the tunnel lights flickered. The city's power wavered like a candle in wind. Miles broke from the first body and lunged, but the third figure moved with impossible smoothness, like he'd rehearsed this in his sleep. He tossed the handheld toward a drain channel. It clattered away. Miles caught the third man by the collar and slammed him into the wall. The man didn't struggle. He smiled. Too late, he said in perfect English. Then the tunnel went dark. Not just lights out, dead out. The kind of darkness that felt engineered. My earpiece crackled, then died. Above us, the city's hum vanished. No distant traffic. No neon buzz. The world became a giant held breath. Miles's voice was a low growl in the dark. Find the device. I dropped to the floor, hands moving by touch, following the drain channel where the handheld had bounced. My fingers found cold plastic. I grabbed it, but it was slick, like it had been coated. A trap? No time. I brought it up to my face, searching for a switch, a kill command, anything. And then a new light appeared, not from our gear, but from the case near the third figure's feet. A faint green glow pulsed, like a heartbeat. The gray lantern protocol key. It was active. Miles hissed, "Crow." I didn't answer. I was staring at the glowing case and realizing something worse. The blackout wasn't the end. It was the cover. This key could do more than shut lights off. It could shut down verification networks, scramble emergency routing, and make every agency trip over itself. A country blind, deaf, and arguing with itself. In that chaos, you didn't need an army to save a nation. You just needed to replace the hand on the wheel. I forced my breath steady and did the only thing an analyst could do in a tunnel with a weaponized key. I made a decision that would either save the country or make me the reason it fell. I slammed the handheld into the case's interface panel, shorting contacts in a spark that burned my fingertips. The green glow flared, then sputtered. For a second, the tunnel filled with the smell of scorched circuitry. The third figure's smile vanished. Miles held him tighter. "What did you do?" I swallowed pain. I lied to the key. How? I fed it a false handshake, made it think it completed the sequence. The third figure's eyes widened, just slightly. That was enough. We weren't fighting zealots. We were fighting professionals, and professionals hated uncertainty. Above us, distant, the city flickered back to life, weakly, unevenly. Not a full restore, but enough to break the perfect dark window they needed. My earpiece hissed, then caught Lena's voice again, distorted but alive. "Evan." The spike collapsed. "The blackout isn't holding. What did you do?" I exhaled. "Tell me the grid is stabilizing." It's stabilizing," Lena said, disbelief in every syllable. "You bought us time." Time was everything. Miles dragged the third figure forward, forcing him toward the nearest emergency stairwell. "We need him alive." We emerged into the city as sirens began to wake, backup systems kicking in, traffic lights rebooting, comms rethreading. People stepped out of buildings, confused, phones glowing again. To them, it would be reported as a brief outage, a technical anomaly, a minor disruption. They would never know that a country had nearly been rewritten in darkness. In the following hours, Gray Lantern moved like it always did, quietly. The port trucks were intercepted. The fake contractor identity was traced to a dead drop. The key's internal tamper log revealed a signature we couldn't name, but could now track. By sunrise, the official world was already inventing a story that sounded safe. But in our room, Director Halvorson's voice came through, calm, but with something close to relief. "You prevented a cascading failure," he said, "and you captured one of their couriers. We have enough to dismantle the rest." Miles looked at me. "Save the country, huh?" I flexed my burned fingers. "Not me. The protocol." Halvorson paused. "No, Crow. Tonight it was you. You made the decision." I didn't respond, because the truth was heavier than praise. We didn't save the country with bullets. We saved it with a single moment of clarity in the dark. Later, when the lights were steady and the city pretended nothing had happened, I walked outside the warehouse and watched the morning traffic move like normal life had always been guaranteed. Miles stood beside me, hands in his pockets. "You think they'll come again?" he asked. I stared at the sunrise and remembered the message. "You can't stop a dark sun." "We stopped it once," I said. "That's the only answer we get." Miles nodded slowly. "And the rest of the world will never know." I gave a small, tired smile. "That's the job." Behind us, beneath the harmless warehouse, Unit Gray Lantern returned to silence. Because somewhere in the dark, someone was already practicing again. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Epic Recon Stories. Here we tell the missions that never made the headlines, the decisions made in silence, and the people who carried them. More stories are coming soon. N.